Tennessee has another coach on its staff, as clearly Josh Heupel is taking advantage of the lack of a rule for assistant coaches and the amount you can have. Now, you can only have so many on the road recruiting, but if you want to, you could have 50 assistant coaches. So this newest one, though, is not exactly blowing my skirt up. Tell me about Seth Littrell, who will literally be joining UT as an offensive analyst.
Yeah, so Tennessee has hired Seth Littrell to come in as an offensive analyst. Seth Littrell, for those who don't know, was a member of Josh Heupel's, was a member of the 2000 Oklahoma Sooners team that won the national title. He and Josh Heupel were both captains of that team. They were in the backfield together. He was a fullback. Josh Heupel was the quarterback. And look, I'm just going to say it. This feels like Josh Heupel going for another yes man. And I just don't see any value. Seth Littrell was just fired as Oklahoma's offensive coordinator middle of the season last year for massive ineffective production. He spent 7 years at North Texas as a head coach. They averaged the 47th best offense, which that's not bad. But Dave, if you're an offensive minded coach at a group of 5 school, you should be having top 10 offenses, right? In that situation.
I agree. I mean, this doesn't do a lot for me. And I like, let's look at the Harbin Chop hire. At least you could say, I don't know his X's and O's. They may be great, they may not, but he is a daft recruiter. I don't know that Littrell necessarily is. He was the head coach at North Texas from 2016 to 2022. He was an even 44-44, right down the middle. I just don't know. He was fired after North Texas went 7-6 and then spent the 2023 season as an analyst at Oklahoma. I think it goes back to yes men. And I believe that Josh Heupel, and I've written this before and some have disagreed with me, I believe that Josh Heupel is paranoid from what happened at his time at Oklahoma, where he was essentially fired as the offensive coordinator after being forced to run an offense he wasn't too fond of. I think he's still paranoid, and I think he's worried stuff is going to get out. I don't know if it's more that or yes men, but I think it's probably a combination of both, Caleb.
So why even hire a guy, though, that, I mean, what's he going to bring? This seems like a friendship move by Josh Heupel. What is he going to bring to the table to you? Honestly, I mean, say what you want about Nick Saban hiring Butch Jones, which seemed stupid at the time as an analyst, but Butch Jones was well-versed in the zone read, smash mouth spread offense because he worked under Rich Rodriguez and Brian Kelly and had worked with Mike DeBoard. And that's not something Saban was experienced with. So Butch Jones could come and give Saban a different perspective. Dave, don't you hire analysts to give you a different perspective when you're like looking on how you look at the offense? Isn't that the whole reason to hire an analyst?
Yeah, you should. That's why, Lane Kiffin was hired as an analyst or a consultant for about a month before he eventually got the Alabama OC job. And yeah, he came in with a whole different set of tools, so to speak. I mean, he was not the run it down the A and B gap over and over and over and hope that your defense wins the game. He was about throwing the ball around, Caleb, and they needed a breath of fresh air. I wonder how they finish their dynasty, their run, if they don't have Lane Kiffin in place.
That's a really good question. I mean, Saban evolved like that with Lane Kiffin. And the thing we really learned with Nick Saban is he's actually a very fast learner too, because he picked up a lot of the stuff Lane Kiffin wanted, and Saban learned how to start running the offense himself that way. Look, is Josh Heupel, is this going to be his undoing? Honestly, I mean, he constantly, he promoted Alec Ablin from within. He promoted Kelsey Pope from within. He promoted Joey Halsey, who provides nothing extra of value. Josh Heupel's too much success.
In all fairness, Pope and Ablin have done well.
They have, but what I mean by that is, and I used to praise Josh Heupel for this, but I look back, his most successful offenses came with Jeff Lebby and Alex Golesh. Both of them came from wildly different backgrounds than Josh Heupel. Well, not Jeff Lebby too much, but Alex Golesh did. They clearly brought different perspectives to Josh Heupel when he brought him in, and it created a much more dynamic offense. Who's on the offense now that's going to do that? Like, who on the offense is going to bring a different perspective? Seth Littrell's only unique. Here's Seth Littrell's coaching tree, who he's coached under, Dave. Mike Leach, Mark Mangino. By the way, two people Josh Heupel played under, so he has their experience. Mike Stoops, which is Bob Stoops' brother, so it's not like that's anything special. The only extra sizzle that that Seth Littrell brings is he coached under Larry Fedora for 2 years. But anybody who knows North Carolina during that time knows that was Larry Fedora's offense, and the offensive coordinators were in name only. You didn't really take anything from Larry Fedora during that time.
Yeah, Unsung said, "Was this a pressure hire?" Unsung, I'm not following there. What exactly do you mean by that? If you can give me a little bit of clarification. And then Derek, Josh H is not a we hire, we fire guy. He hires to promote within or send to a higher role. No, but Nick Saban was not a we fire guy. Guys just left because it was so tough. I think Tennessee needs a little bit of that, maybe a little bit more toughness. And if your head coach is paranoid, that's not good. Could this be Josh Heupel's undoing? As a matter of fact, Caleb, I will go ahead and say that I thought that this morning, and I've thought that since the 3 assistant coaching hires were named. Ultimately, I don't think it'll be Josh Heupel getting himself fired. I think he's a great offensive mind, but it may be his assistant coaches and lack of production that gets him fired.
I agree. If anything happens, it'll be the lack of production. I mean, he doesn't have another voice in the room, and he's running a system. And I want to be clear about this, guys. This is why the Heupel Steve Spurrier comparisons made no sense looking back. One guy just runs. Steve Spurrier called offenses play to play. He was the creative mind. He called it literally play to play. Heupel has a system similar to Tom Osborne, where he has formations and there's about 3 or 4 options of a play to run based on how the defense is going. That's what he does. There's no creativity beyond that. And it just doesn't feel like he's bothering to add any. And I do think that's kind of an issue long term. I think he's too confident in himself and what he does. This very much reminds me, guys, and I'll just bring the name up, rest in peace, but this is how an offense and a program gets a ceiling. Mike Leach, Dave, he had a ceiling, didn't he? I mean, he had a floor, but he had a ceiling with the offenses he ran. And it was never going to go beyond that ceiling. Now, people say, oh, what if he got the extra talent? What if he was ever able to get the schools to get the talent? I don't think it would have mattered. I think he was so set on the system, the limitations would have been there.
Yep. So Unsung with some clarification, was Heupel told to hire someone? Like, was this someone else's hire? So he makes a safe hire, just thinking wildly. If that's the case, and I'm not ruling that out, if that's the case and Danny White is phoning Josh Heupel that you have to make a coaching hire, then this program is on thin ice.
If an athletic director ever gets involved with staff moves, then Josh Heupel's in way bigger trouble than you realize. Now, the athletic director at Ohio State got involved with Ryan Day's moves last year and forced him to hire Chip Kelly, and it worked out. So, I mean, sometimes that can work out, but typically that doesn't work out.
Yep. All right. So this from Timothy, a super chat, which goes to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. You want to read that out from Timothy?
Yeah, it says Heupel's offense is not creative and too darn predictable. Timothy, you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Okay. I think that's a little oversimplification, to be real honest with you. Not to disagree with you both, but that's what I'm going to do. You had a quarterback who wasn't very good 2 years ago, and you had a quarterback that was young last year. So give us an update on our poll question, Caleb, because we might just change that up.
The best Cajun food is jambalaya, gumbo, etouffee, and gumbo wins at 50%.
Okay. Gumbo wins at 50%. Oyster or shrimp? Got to go oyster. All right.
Shrimp. I don't like oyster. Sorry. Never have.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So, all right. Let's put that as a poll question. New poll question. And that is, Josh Heupel's offense is innovative or stale? Just those two options is what I want to do. The show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studios. Give me 2 minutes off the hook sports. And,
well, wait, let's let's stay on this for a minute, just real quick. Because I wanted to share just point. I want to add to Derek's point on this, but like, well, actually, we'll get to Derek's point when we get back. But I just want to add that Seth Littrell, I think. What about this? Will Seth Littrell make Josh Heupel's offense more innovative or stale? I think it's not going to change anything about the offense. To you? No,
I don't think it'll change anything. That's why I would prefer to go with just is it stale or innovative? Because this time last year hasn't been that long ago. We were having the discussion that he's Steve Spurrier, and now we're having the discussion that he's Mike Leach. That's a pretty precipitous fall.
It is.
And
Totally
I'm
agree.
curious what percentage of our fans think that the offense is just stale. I don't believe that's the case. I don't, because I believe Tennessee's offense has had two quarterbacks that were either not ready or not good enough. And if he gets the right cat in there under center, I think they'll be just fine.